He was America's most decorated war hero, a soldier who faced death dozens of times and lived to tell the tale. Then, he became a Hollywood icon, admired by millions. But on May 28, 1971, Audie Murphy boarded a small plane for what should have been a routine business trip, and never came back. The crash was ruled an accident, a tragic end to a legendary life. But what if that story was never the full truth? For over 5 decades, whispers of negligence, cover-ups, and unanswered questions have haunted his legacy. Now, shocking new revelations have come to light, and they point to something far more disturbing than we were ever told. What really happened to Audie Murphy? After 50 years, the mystery is finally being unraveled, and what's been uncovered will shake everything you thought you knew. Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier of World War II, a beloved actor, and national icon, boarded a twin-engine Aero Commander 680 Super from Atlanta's DeKalb Peachtree Airport on what should have been a routine business trip to Martinsville, Virginia. It was a flight he had taken before. But this time, something felt different. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, so did a storm of tragic miscalculations. The weather turned vicious fast, rain poured relentlessly, and a thick blanket of fog smothered the Blue Ridge Mountains below. Visibility dropped to nearly nothing. And yet, pilot Herman Butler pressed on. Though he had logged over 8,000 flight hours, Butler was flying under visual flight rules, regulations that depend entirely on clear skies and visible landmarks. The most chilling part? Butler wasn't even certified to fly using instruments, the one skill that could have saved them in such dangerous conditions. What followed was not just an accident. It was a deadly chain of decisions that would rob America of a hero, and raise questions that still haven't faded with time. The pilot had logged thousands of hours in the air, but less than 6 of them in this particular aircraft. The Aero Commander 680 Super was no simple machine, and that lack of experience proved fatal. Without proper training or legal clearance to navigate such a complex plane, especially in worsening weather, the risk was immense. And at exactly 12:08 p.m., the worst happened, the aircraft vanished from radar. Surrounded by thick fog, low-hanging clouds, and mountainous terrain, they had entered instrument meteorological conditions, flying blind through the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Moments later, the plane slammed into the eastern slope of Brush Mountain at roughly 2,700 feet. The crash was brutal. No one survived. Audie Murphy, along with 5 others, was killed on impact. But the tragedy didn't end there. No flight plan had been filed, making coordinated search efforts nearly impossible. Fog and relentless rain slowed every attempt to locate the wreck. It took 3 agonizing days before rescuers finally found the mangled remains of the aircraft, just 300 feet below the summit of Brush Mountain. By then, the world had lost a legend, and a haunting mystery had just begun. The crash site was haunting. Twisted metal lay scattered across the thick brush of the Virginia mountainside, a brutal scene of silence and devastation. There were no signs of life. When word of Audie Murphy's death broke, it sent shockwaves across the country. On June 1, front pages like the New York Times carried the heartbreaking news: America had lost one of its greatest sons. Murphy wasn't just a decorated soldier or a movie star, he was a living symbol of valor, sacrifice, and quiet humility. His death felt personal, like a national wound. On June 7, he was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. As he had requested, his gravestone remained modest, a simple, dignified marker of a man who never sought glory, even after earning it. At first, the crash was accepted as another tragic accident, just a victim of bad weather and bad luck. But whispers began to surface. Details didn't line up. And when the truth finally emerged, it revealed something far more disturbing. Before we uncover the chilling mystery behind that fatal flight, we need to understand where this story truly began. Because with Audie Murphy, everything, even the end, is rooted in the beginning. Born on June 20, 1925, in the small, dust-bitten town of Kingston, Texas, Audie was the 7th of 12 children born to a poor sharecropping family. He came into the world with nothing, and would grow into a man who gave everything. Audie Murphy's childhood was carved out of hardship. His father, Emmett Murphy, was a restless drifter who eventually vanished for good, abandoning the family without a second thought. That left Audie and his many siblings in the care of their exhausted mother, Josie Belle Murphy, a woman who fought tooth and nail to keep her children alive. But love alone couldn't fill empty stomachs. Poverty clung to them like a shadow. By the age of 10, Audie was already shouldering a man's burden, using a worn-out rifle to hunt squirrels and rabbits just to help feed the family. His eye was steady, his aim precise, skills that would later define him as a soldier. Though naturally intelligent and full of curiosity, he had no choice but to drop out of school in the 5th grade to work full-time. He picked cotton under a blazing sun, shined shoes, manned gas pumps, and even tried radio repair, anything that put a few coins in his pocket and food on the table. But nothing could prepare him for what came next. In 1941, when Audie was just 16, his mother, his rock, his world, passed away after a long illness. Her death shattered him. In one cruel moment, he lost the only source of love and security he had ever known. With her gone, the boy who had already seen too much pain was now truly alone. Murphy Jr. children were sent to orphanages or to live with relatives, and Audie was left to fend for himself. The most important turning point in Audie's life happened when he was 17. He was willing to do anything to take advantage of this chance to change his fate. By 1942, the world was at war, and so was Audie Murphy's soul. He was only 17 years old, too young and too small for military service, but he was desperate to join. For Audie, the military wasn't just about fighting. Being patriotic, it was about flight and staying alive. When the United States joined World War II, it made him want to fight to prove himself and find meaning in a life that had been mostly hard so far. But there was a problem: the U.S. military wouldn't take anyone under 18 without family permission at the time. Audie didn't have either parents still living, and he didn't even look his age. At 5 feet 5 inches and 110 pounds, he was more like a boy than a soldier, with his thin frame and young face. To avoid being left behind while others went to war, Audie turned to the one thing he knew how to do well: being resourceful. In June 1942, Audie Murphy took his first brave step. He got a notarized 1925 birth certificate signed and verified by Al Springfield, a family friend and local official in Texas. This document made him look 1 year older than he really was, so he took this version of his age to the Army recruiter's office, even though he was small. He thought that the papers and his youthful appearance would be enough to get away with it, but it wasn't. Military officials were still skeptical. Recruiters turned Audie down from both the Marines and the Navy because they said he was too small, frail, or young. But Audie wouldn't give up. A few days later, he lied again, this time putting his birth year on a fake birth certificate that said he was born in 1924. He got this new copy from Dr. J.L. Pearson, who had helped him lie the first time. Was said to have been at Audie's birth, and the fact that the certificate was filed only 6 days after the original one from Springfield backs up the claim even more. Audie's older sister and formal guardian, Karen Murphy, signed an affidavit confirming that he was born in 1924. His family was ready to help him, and the paperwork was in order. Audie finally got his wish: the U.S. Army took him into their ranks. He was sworn in on June 30, 1942, when he was only 17 years old, but legally he was 18. This event would have a huge impact on the rest of his life. He worked hard to earn his place in the world, and soon that spot would be on the cutting edge of history. Murphy lied about his age to join the U.S. Army, but once he was there, he proved that he belonged. What started as a desperate lie quickly turned into one of the most famous combat careers in American military history. Even though he was short and looked young, Murphy's bravery, leadership, and sheer determination made him a national hero after basic training. After training, Murphy was sent to the 15th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division. His first combat experience was in North Africa, and he was quickly thrown into the harsh conditions of World War II in Tunisia and Sicily. Audie quickly became respected by his fellow soldiers for staying calm under fire and being very accurate with a gun. It wasn't long before he was promoted. His instincts on the battlefield were clear. Murphy fought in some of the most dangerous and important campaigns of the Battle of Anzio. He fought through the rough Italian terrain in southern France and earned many medals for bravery. Even though he was hurt several times, he refused to be taken out of the fight. By 1944, he had already racked up an impressive collection of decorations, including Silver Stars, Bronze Stars, and Purple Hearts. But it was on January 26, 1945, in Holtz, France, that Murphy's legend really began. At just 19 years old, Audie and his men were facing overwhelming odds as they were being overrun by a massive German attack. With 6 tanks and more than 200 infantry soldiers, their small company was greatly outnumbered, and it looked like they had no chance as the Germans closed in. Murphy told his men to fall back, but he stayed behind to cover their retreat. His unit's tank destroyer had already been hit and was on fire, so most people would have run away, but Audie climbed onto the burning tank, manned its 50 caliber machine gun, and opened fire on the Germans non-stop for over an hour. Sped around him shells went off nearby, and the tank was about to blow up at any second, but he stood his ground. His actions not only stopped the enemy's advance, but they also killed dozens of German soldiers and gave his men time to regroup and launch a counterattack. When the smoke cleared, Audie was hurt and tired, but victorious. His heroic stand had turned the tide of the battle. For this act of extraordinary bravery, Audie Murphy was given the Medal of Honor, which is the highest military honor in the United States. Audie Murphy was a decorated American combat soldier in World War II who won over 30 medals and awards from the US and other countries. He was praised as a hero, but no one knew the secret battle he was quietly fighting inside him long after the guns stopped firing. When the war ended, Audie Murphy returned to the US not only as a soldier, but also as a symbol. For decades, the truth about his birth was hidden in official biographies, press interviews, and even government records. Murphy himself knew he wasn't born in 1924. It wasn't until 2021, 50 years after his death, that the real story came to light. A Freedom of Information Act request revealed 2 important documents that had been kept secret: his original birth certificate from 1925 and an affidavit from his sister Karen Murphy in 1948 that made it clear that he was born in 1925. The 1924 document he submitted during his enlistment was a fake, a bold but necessary lie by a teenager. After the war, he only wanted to serve his country, so he quickly moved to California and started studying acting. His screen debut was in Beyond Glory in 1948, and he quickly signed with major studios. Murphy was handsome, soft-spoken, and real, so he brought something special to the screen. He wasn't pretending to be a soldier, he was one. Over the next 20 years, he starred in 44 movies, mostly westerns and war dramas. To Helen, It Was Love's Heart was his biggest hit. Back in 1955, a dramatized version of his own war memoir was released. In it, Audie played himself reliving the battles that had left him emotionally broken. It was one of the biggest hits of the 1950s and solidified his reputation as a true American hero, but Murphy's rising fame in Hollywood hit a growing personal crisis. The war had never left him. Audie had severe PTSD, which was not well understood at the time. He had frequent nightmares, severe mood swings, and times of deep depression. He even locked himself in a room one time. He was nervous and armed, and he was known to sleep with a loaded gun under his pillow and wake up in cold sweats thinking he was back in battle. His marriages were strained, and he sometimes withdrew from public life. He became addicted to gambling and had money problems. Even with all of these problems, he stayed a strong supporter of veterans, especially those who were hurt in ways that couldn't be seen. He wrote honestly about his mental health problems in the 1960s, long before it was popular to do so. And told the government it should do more for troops coming home. Audie's problems seemed to never end. As soon as one storm passed, another one appeared. It was like he had escaped the battlefield only to be caught in a lifetime of silent wars. Audie was known to have a short temper, which people close to him saw more often than the public did. Many people thought it was because of the trauma he had experienced in war, but there were a few events that made his problems public. The most well-known of these was in 1970. A year before he died, Murphy was arrested on charges of assault and battery after an argument with a dog trainer. Reports say the trainer had abused Murphy's dog, which led to the fight. Audie, who was known for having a strong bond with animals and a strong sense of justice, reportedly lost it and slammed the trainer, but he was eventually found not guilty. The story made headlines and showed a man who was always on edge and whose pain could come out at any time, but legal problems weren't the only thing that was bothering Murphy. Only fights. Even though he had a successful movie career and was known as a war hero, Murphy made a lot of bad financial decisions. He gambled a lot and lost a lot of money in casinos and private games. He also put money into a lot of bad businesses, like horse racing and speculative oil deals, which often failed because of bad management or dishonest partners. At one point, Murphy was so deeply in debt that he had to file for bankruptcy with his creditors. Hounding him for unpaid loans, he had sold property, taken on roles in bad movies, and even asked his friends in the business for help. It was a stark and painful contrast to the public image of a perfect American hero. Even his personal relationships were strained. He loved his two sons very much, but his marriage to actress Pamela Archer became rocky, in part because of his mood swings and financial stress. The psychological scars of war made it hard for him to connect emotionally with others, which his wife would later talk about. How Murphy had trouble communicating and how his inner pain kept him away from the people who loved him the most, just like Audie's life was full of ups and downs. Murphy's death was a tragedy that left a lot of unanswered questions and lingering doubts. But now, after decades of silence, the mystery has been solved, and the truth is much stranger than anyone thought. Let's get into the specifics. For decades, Audie Murphy's tragic death on Brush Mountain was thought to have been an accident caused by bad weather, pilot error, and poor visibility. But in recent years, that story has started to fall apart. What was once seen as a sad end to a heroic life is now seen by many as a possible cover-up, and the more investigators dig, the scarier it gets. The tale becomes the turning factor came when a group of whistleblowers, retired officials, aviation professionals, or even one alleged eyewitness broke their silence after decades. A few claimed they had been silenced via non-disclosure agreements or veiled threats, all because of what they believed Murphy had come into contact with shortly earlier than his loss of life. In step with these resources, Murphy may additionally have won access to categorized documents or sensitive records, both through his army connections or his put-up battle relationships in government and the enjoyment industry. An independent investigation spearheaded via a civilian forensic team in collaboration with Army historians began re-inspecting the to-be-had crash reports, radio transcripts, and declassified files. What they exposed became traumatic. Murphy had allegedly been under observation inside the month's main as much as the crash surveillance. Facts now advocate that he changed into being carefully watched through unknown parties, hinting that he can also have stumbled onto something that made him a goal. This wave of revelation delivered gasoline to lengthy swirling conspiracy theories. One idea shows that the aircraft crash was not an accident in any respect, however a carefully orchestrated event may want to. Intelligence marketers have manipulated the flight course or weather reviews to make sure a controlled crash changed into the crash, designed to appear to be pilot blunders, even as serving a darker motive. Some other idea points to organized crime or financial opponents. Murphy had been involved in several business deals that went sour, inclusive of with shady figures inside the racing and amusement industries. A few believe those connections might also have had motives to silence him, specifically if he became digging into subjects he wasn't imagined to. Maximum chilling of all is the revelation that some wreckage from the crash web page changed into mysteriously lacking parts of the plane were by no means logged or recovered. Regardless of good-sized seek efforts, investigators and locals who later hiked to the site have suggested inconsistencies within the recovery timeline and lacking particles, suggesting that someone might also are becoming there first. Understandably, Murphy's own family maintains to deny any foul play, insisting his demise was truly a sad twist of fate, but they have additionally expressed frustration at the lack of transparency and the emotional ache these renewed theories have brought on. Meanwhile, historians and veterans businesses are Divided, some nevertheless keep directly to the authentic version of occasions at the same time as others are traumatic. A full government disclosure with new evidence coming to mild the story of Audie Murphy's death may additionally need to be rewritten, one that doesn't stop with peace but with secrecy, chants and questions nevertheless echoing through Brush Mountain. What are your mind on this very last explanation of Audie Murphy's mysterious death? Do you agree with it became only a tragic coincidence or turned into something a long way more sinister at play? Proportion your mind inside the remarks beneath.